All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to a Tuesday session of Longsword. Um, what we're going to be doing today is we're going to do our basic warm-up stuff, and then we're going to kind of jump in and review the Krumphau, which is some of the stuff that Dina went over last week. Um, yeah, I don't have any other big announcements or anything, except that we are not doing weekend classes at the moment, simply because it is A, getting too cold, and also B, the COVID numbers are on the rise in New York, and it's becoming a situation that we all feel is generally unsafe. Yeah, we're back to virtual classes. That's okay. We'll make it work. All right, so let's go ahead and grab our sword-like object. We'll salute in, and then we will do some. We'll do some warm-ups. All right. All right. So Aktun and salute. All right. Let's put these aside and let's do some warm-ups. Okay. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All the way down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right foot. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that was left, now right. 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8. Deep lunge. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, shaking it out. All right, let's do those knees. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Alright, let's grab our swords, or sword-like objects. Let's see if I can pull off not scratching my roof again. Okay. So, from the high Vom Talk, we're going to cut to Einhorn. Okay? And eins, zwei, drei, vier, fünf, sechs, sieben, acht, neun, 10. Alright, cut to long point. Und eins, zwei, drei, vier, fünf, sechs, sieben, acht, neun, 10. All the way to Alber. Und eins, zwei, drei, vier, fünf, sechs, sieben, acht, neun, 10. Okay, either the high Vom Talk or the right shoulder Vom Talk. And we're going to cut right oberhau. Eins, zwei, drei, vier, fünf, sechs, sieben, acht, neun, 10. Switch your feet. Eins, zwei, drei, vier, fünf, sechs, sieben, acht, neun, 10. Alright, we're going to do oberhau, unterhau. Und eins, zwei, drei, vier, fünf, sechs, sieben, acht, neun, 10. Switch sides. Und eins, zwei, drei, vier, fünf, sechs, sieben, acht, neun, 10. All right, middle how. Eins, zwei, drei, vier, fünf. Switch sides. Sechs, sieben, 9, 10. Okay, let's go into ox on the right. All right. And then oberhau, if you have the space, take the step. If not, keep that right leg forward. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Alright, neighbor on the right. Step if you got it. If not, keep that right leg forward. I'm going to hit my wall here. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, switch sides. Going to go to ox on the left. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Alright, neighborhood on the left. Step if you got space. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Alright, sehr gut. Okay. So now let's all go to Flug on the right. We're going to thrust into shoulder height, ox on the left. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going, instead of shoulder height, I want everyone from now, we're going to go from right Flug into high ox. Und 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. All right. Now from Flug on the right, we're going to go into shoulder height ox on the right. Und 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, we're going to go from Flug on the left, on the right. We're going to go to the high ox on the right. Und 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Sehr gut. Okay, let's begin on the left. So Flug on the left. we're going to thrust to the opposite ox on the right-hand side, but at shoulder height. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, now we're going to go from this Flug to high ox on the right. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so now let's go from Flug on the left. We're going to now thrust into ox at shoulder height on the left. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, from the left Flug, we're going to transition into the left ox, and it's going to be the high ox now. Okay? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, let's begin in the long point. And we're going to einschießen. So for the first 5, we're going to do 2 sets of these, one of which is we're going to thrust to the shoulder height. So let's start with that one, all right? So we're going to begin here, and we're going to begin in the long point, and then shoot in, turning, and then turning, so that your hand basically looks like that. Nails are facing the ground, and that should end here. For rapier peeper, this is Sekunde, of like a low ox. Okay? And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we're going to do same height, so still shoulder height, but now we're going to have our thrust so our nails are up. Okay? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Now, into the long point, we're going to thrust straight in as if you're stabbing someone right here in the throat. All right? So don't think up, think straight. All right? And then, so 30% energy in, 70% out. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, sehr gut. Shake it off, get some water, and then we're going to do some exercises. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we are going to do some exercises very similar to the ones we did last week. So again, I always preface this with the fact that I I'm still learning how to do all these exercises, but also, and I'm not fully capable of doing them. So if we start doing something like squats, and there's something better for you that you could be doing, please do that instead. But let's put our sword, like I said, sword-shaped objects down, and we're going to begin in this squatting position, arms together, and we're going to be lifting our leg up so we can try to get our knee and hip generally parallel, and then arms come down, and then back to the stretch. Okay? And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, switch legs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, feet comfortably apart. We're going to do 10 squats. All right, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Shake it out. Feet together. And step to the side with your right foot. Down and up. And back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and 7, and 8, and 9, and 10. Okay. All right. Let's do 10 jumping jacks. Same style as with our warm-ups. So, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 10 push-ups in your own time. And 1. All right, and once you've done those, stretch it out. Stretch it out. Okay. All right. Shake it out for just a second more. And put that right foot back. Left leg forward, arms up. One more round. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Switch your feet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, feet together. And 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 5, and 6, and 7, and 8, and 9, and 10, and let's do another set of jumping jacks. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 push-ups, please. Swords around. Then after you finish those 10, just give yourself a second to stretch out the back and arms. And then we'll do some sword stuff. Alright, so when you're done with those, stretch it out, shake it out, grab some water, and then we'll move on. All right. Yeah, it's good. Get that heart rate up, right? All right. So first thing, before we get to the Krumphau, I just want to kind of quickly. I want to do some more oberhau. One of the common things that I'm seeing in general, both from class time and kind of witnessing it in the little boxes I see in front of me. When we're doing oberhau, I'm seeing a lot of leading with the hands, and then the blade comes down, or the tip then comes out and down. So I want to experiment with a little something. I don't know if this is the right way to try to completely get in there, and I don't want to overcorrect things, but kind of a good way to practice making sure that we get that tip out. We want to start doing, grab your, whether it's one-handed, you can do this with one-handed sword or two-handed. I want everyone to first check their grip. All right, making sure that they're not giving a kendo grip or like a modern epee. You don't want to do like a saber or a modern epee grip. You want to make sure that when you're holding the sword, it's in, you have the meat of your hand behind it and your knuckles pointing forward, right? Right? So for all folks using one-handed swords, the way that we get that tip forward here is we squeeze these two fingers, right? So what I want you to practice doing right now, even if you have a two-handed sword, I want you to hold your sword out I just want you to practice squeezing your pinky and just getting that little cutting action going. Right? Yeah, good. And then stretch your arm out all the way, same thing. So the right hand, see, if you're right-handed, your right hand is the rudder. It's kind of steering where your sword is going. Most of the power is going to come from your sinister hand. I'm sorry, the left hand. And but at the same time, that doesn't mean the left hand comes first necessarily, right? So now if you're doing a two-handed sword, what I want you to do, for folks one-handed sword, keep doing this. You're going to be stuck in this hell for just another minute or so. Shake it out if you have to. If you have a two-handed sword, I want you to double-check the same thing on the bottom grip. I want you to now to do the same thing, but with both hands. Right? Try to sync. It's going to be a little asynchronous at first, but I want you to try to sync up the squeezing of those pinkies, of like these two bottom fingers. For me, it's I frequently talk about trying to build my journey of building these connections with my body. If I think about squeezing with my pinky, the other finger kind of follows, right? And see what's happening here. It's putting the tip out, right? And also, the other part of this, if you can't get that little cutting action, the other thing is to check your grip and make sure that you're not over gripping the sword. Because if you're death hammering the sword, there's really nowhere for it to go, right? It's kind of like how we talked about. With our oxes, right? Our ox and Flug, giving ourselves a little leeway so that way we have somewhere to go, right? Same thing with the grip. We don't want hammer death grip, but we want a good grip that allows us to move forward. If we had, so now what I want everyone to do is go back into that high Vom Talk. It's more so for the folks who are using two hands. I want you to think about. Actually, no. Before we even do that, we're not going to cut all the way down. I want you to go in the high Vom Talk, and I just want you to. Ooh, there goes my ceiling. Another one. I want you to practice from this position, just squeezing the fingers. Make sure your arms are relaxed, shoulders are relaxed, but your elbows are out. And that gives you that kind of we talk about Lugensland, being able to look into the land, right? You can see out. Now I want you to just practice from checking your grip, making sure your knuckles are facing the correct direction, and just practice that squeezing motion. Right? And you'll know if you're gripping too hard or if you're adding too much tension in your shoulders, because you're going to get tired real fast. Right? And then once you've done that a few times, I want you to then reach out. But I want, right? Right? And the thing you really, really want to focus on here, after you've gotten here, like after your sword is out, right? Because this is that motion, right? We're prepping the sword to go. Is that you're making sure to reach out again, not hyperextending. We're not leaning into a thrust, but arms are comfortably out. And from this point, I personally find it easiest to kind of focus on just letting my left hand pull the sword down, right? Because in this case, I know I'm trying to cut a nice vertical strike. My right hand only has to stay stationary to kind of rudder, just basically steer the sword down to make sure I'm making that nice straight line. Left hand then takes over to just kind of help finish that arc. Yeah. Excellent. Couple more, do like 5 more of these from this strike here, from vertical, the Shuttlehau vertical oberhau. All right, now what I want you to do is after you've done a few of those and you're feeling comfortable with it, if you want to keep working on that, keep working on that, but just give me 1 second. So for folks who want to move on, what I'd like you to do, same thing, but what I want you, same kind of beginning in Vom Talk, but instead of just squeezing and moving forward, I want you to focus on squeezing your hands, your fingers to get that action, but I want you to focus it on moving your right hand, and only your right hand, to 45 degrees out, right? So, boom, right? What that will do is that's going to set you up for a right oberhau, right? So again, squeeze. So just practice this motion a little bit. Focus on squeezing, so that way you're getting that tip out. And then you can bring it all the way down. And the trick is the fact the same thing is happening with the other cut as with the other earlier cut that we were doing. The left hand, I'm just moving my left hand straight down. All right? And if you notice, it's just moved from here to here. The only thing that's changed is I've used my right hand to angle the sword as it's coming down, and then also to keep it going, basically to guide it, to make sure, to guide it through that, that angle, right? Now that means one thing is that you're going to have, that was bad, I'm sorry. There we go. That cross guard is going to cross from here to here, right? Because your left hand is going to stay in place. But I mean, not completely in place. It's still going to come down. So that way, this, if you were cutting this right oberhau and you were only using your left arm, it would actually only be this, but with your body slightly turning. You need that right hand to give it that angle. Dina, keep your left hand more centered. If you can, if it doesn't destroy your ceiling. Lacey, it's looking good with hand alignment. I think you're maybe over-rotating a little bit. I feel like you're almost looking to someone, like this imaginary person on your left. Yep, Katie, try to, if you can, keep your left hand a little more centered, if you can. Yeah. So here. Yes. And the tricky part for me was to learn to synchronize this left hand with and this downward motion, and getting that, just moving the right hand. Because I think what has happened, and this is partially my fault, mostly my fault, is that when we cut, we think this. We're not cutting the Flug, cutting the Alber. So the sword should be, yeah. Same thing, and once you've gotten tired of the right side, switch to the left side and try the same thing. Put that left foot forward, go into that high Vom Talk, and first practice just squeezing and getting the sword out to that space. And this is really, I found to be the most difficult part, was just learning to, instead of this, just this. Now do a few of these. And after you've done about 10, do 10 on the left, and I want you to go back, and I want you to try just doing the vertical oberhau ones after you've done the ones on the left. I don't have space to do it. There we go. All right. It's looking so much better. Kat, you were leading with your hands in the last couple. But overall, it's looking like, there you go. Yeah, it's looking like 10,000 times better. So I think, we're going to try to, especially because distance and everything else, we're going to, I think, revisit a lot of like these more, revisiting of the like tiny little things. And it's, not sure exactly how it's going to work out in this kind of setting, but I think it'll be a fun way to discover and figure it out. So everyone grab a quick water break, and then we're going to do Krumphau. I should get my tinfoil hat. All right. So for folks with the Udalev book, I'm on page 116. 116. And it begins about halfway down the page at 13v. Grundgeschichte auf werden auf die Hände. Crump versetzt die Waffe gut verreitelt mit Schritten Wiederhaue. Okay, so Crump upwards nimbly, throw the point on the hands. He who displaces well with Crump will wound many strikes with steps. All right. Beginning, I always kind of begin Krumphau with the idea that the Krumphau is the thing that makes me lose my mind the most in all of KDF, because I think it is the most contested and I think generally maybe misunderstood to a certain degree thing that we talk about. And I always kind of begin with the idea of Crump in more modern, is kind of more modern German, usually means crooked, or it could be arching. Which I think is not inaccurate for what we're about to do. But also, additionally so, Crump is medieval German for weighted or heavy. So a kind of a direct translation from medieval German for Crump would be like the heavy displacement, or the heavy hue. Know that the Crump is one of the 4 displacements against the 4 guards because you oppose both Ox and Eber. Now, Eber... there's a footnote here that says Aber is probably a scribal error. Oberhau is more plausible here. However, Aber is also the name of the equivalent of the garden Flug in the Küchner's Messer treatise, which is dated to about 20 years later than Udalev. but that doesn't mean it wasn't also being used at the time. As well as the Unterhau. Do it as follows. When you come at him in the Zufechten and he stands against you with the sword before his head and the guard of ox on his left, then put your left foot forward and hold your sword at the right shoulder in the guard. Jump from this guard with your right leg well to the right side and strike him with the long edge out of crossed arms. Right? Over his hands. I always forget. There's like three words on the next page. So let's dissect this first part. I am developing my own personal theories about why the glosses are kind of organized the way they are, and I think that what they're talking about here is they're talking about anytime your sword is they refer to on the shoulder, which is generally this position, right? It's this kind of starting Zufechten, which I believe, and I'll probably dive into the Talhofer stuff, but my unresearched and unverified theory is that in general this was how you were supposed to start the duel, so to speak. And so from here, what they're telling you to do is someone goes into ox to step out with your right foot and throw the tip with the long edge over their hands. And then, right? So, boom. But then I guess the biggest problem that I'm having with a lot of the text is that then you were supposed to strike them out of jump from this guard with your right leg well to the right side, so boom, and with the long edge out of crossed arms. So they want you to be out of crossed arms when you're striking them, it sounds like to me. Because, and again, that it's could mean that from here you are doing something as this, which is kind of my prevailing theory. But again, I digress. What it sounds like what they're asking you to do, for the most part, is first maybe it is a laming position, but it also depends on. I mean, it's also kind of hard to demonstrate why what I'm saying is maybe different than what we're used to. Simply because I think it has something to do with the engagement of how we're supposed to then, like in the Zufechten, as we're coming to the person. Someone who's coming at you in ox isn't necessarily going to. You're not necessarily going to step aside and just be able to hit them as they move by, unless they're doing it really stupidly, I guess. Or just overly committed. I've only seen, and the fact that, and Michael Chinister brings up a really good point, that it happens so rarely in active fencing. And even in the European tournaments where they're always either trying to Zwergkopter or thrust out of ox, the Krumphau, just the straight kind of laming Krumphau action rarely happens. And I think that is because the Crump itself is, the weighted strike is the first part of this, and I think it's always supposed to kind of make contact with the blade. I think in this first paragraph they're kind of explaining it in this more dynamic way, and so much like so it's kind of, long story short, I think that Krumphau is essentially a Dämpfen action, right? I talk about this a little bit with in our Messer group. Dämpfen is anytime you are striking a blade down in order to deflect a strike or a thrust, right? Because in order to strike out of crossed arms, you'd have had to have done something different first, and then it gets kind of weird and mixed up. But in general, this action is the action is correct. Right? You're stepping to the right and thrusting in. I just think that we're missing some information here. So that's neither here nor there. It's really hard. I will try to do. I keep saying I gotta get one of those bicycle stands so I can put a sword in here and like demonstrate some things. Donate to the Ko-Fi so I can buy a bicycle stand. Anyway, so let's do some Krumphau. All right. So let's do 10 of these. So what I want to do from here, I want to begin with let's begin with our left foot forward. All right, in the normal position. Sword on our shoulder, as the text says. And what we're going to do is we're going to step out with the right foot. and cross our arms. And so let's do 10 of these, okay? So on the shoulder. Oops, I'm sorry, neighbors. Okay. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right? Now, one thing you will notice, especially towards the end, one of the and this all kind of feeds into some of the, I guess, other KDF stuff. One of the things if you kind of break down what they're asking you to do with the Krumphau, very easily it could be asking you simply to move the ox on your right side, offline, of course, because what they're going to be asking us to do next is a schnappen, and this is a very common. This is described elsewhere in the Zettel as well. But all right, so we'll get to that in a second. I'm sorry, kind of all over the place today. All right. So the next item for the Krumphau is from the Schrankhut. All right. Item: do the Krumphau from the Schrankhut from both sides. Take the guard as follows. When you come to the opponent in the Zufechten, put your left foot forward and hold your sword with the point on the ground to your right side, so the long edge faces upwards. All right. So generally, you're in the shoulder, and then you come to the Zufechten, and such. All right. Give an opening with your left side. So when he strikes the opening from above, jump away from the strike with your right foot to your right side and against him. Push the pommel of your sword with the left hand under your right arm and strike with crossed arms from the long edge with the point over his hands. All right. Yeah. So it's like this big motion. So what you're doing is you're beginning in the Zufechten. You're coming out of the Zufechten, right, into Schrankhut. Actually, it probably should be higher. So here, deploying the Schrankhut, right. Here. Again, all right, so let's do a couple more of these, right? So, Schrankhut. 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 Now, from here, you can also deploy the sword out, because essentially, again, they're asking you to kind of cut the wrist. The next section is really more asking you to do the binding. This looks familiar, right? We've done this a whole lot with our messers and everything else. From the Schrankhut, by inviting that stroke in from above, you're essentially looking to aim. You're aiming to, snipe the arms, etc. Slash them as that's coming in. All right. The other iterations of this also involve going from you're in the Schrankhut, you've now bound on their sword, and then you schnapp into the head. Right. That's, I think, the more. That's the most. I think that's the one that is most used, to be honest. Essentially, because it is very effective. You use you use that arching, that heavy weighted strike to clear the sword in a dämpfen action, right? The idea of striking the sword down, and then you just take the nearest path into attacking, right? There's some other things. So again, left foot forward, you're in Schrankut, you deploy out the Schrankut, clear, and now you've either cut them or maybe you've missed, and then in. There are other, next week we'll do some crazy tinfoil hat versions of this. We only have a couple minutes left, so let's do it from the other side. Let's put our right foot forward and go into Schrankut on the left. Right? And what we're going to do is we're going to step out with our left foot while clearing, and then if we want to strike in. Yep. So, right foot forward, in Schrankut on the left, step out with the left, and right foot, give them that opening on the right, so they try to take that. And that's a big part of the Krumphau, I think, in a lot of things. Is we talked about this a little bit last week too, with like how we're kind of discussing the angles for which we want to hold the Flug and the ox. The idea that you don't necessarily always want to. I'm here to defend. I'm like being completely offensive all the time, right? This is a choice, and it gets increasingly more uncomfortable. And if you think about how we're talking about the Krumphau as well. If I'm putting my blade here, it is way more susceptible to, like, if someone goes to, like, do a Krumphau on it, I'm giving you my blade, right? If I keep my blade back here, I'm threatening you because my blade is forward, but in order to Krumphau this blade, you now have to come to it, right? But I have all this action, all this space that I can occupy, but I'm given the option of like letting you come to me, right? And then I can do maybe something else from out of here. So that's kind of a counter. So a counter, this is something we don't normally talk about with Krumphau. A counter to the Krumphau is changing through, right? So if you go into the ox, and I would say keep the ox straight ahead, the way we've been discussing. And all you have to do to counter the Krumphau is simply change through and stab. Dip the tip and stab. Because if they're going to do the Krumphau, they're coming to you and stab. And if they're getting close, maybe you don't have like this isn't going to be enough space. You can simply just cut oberhau. Here, just drop the tip down. Remember we were discussing this kind of wider oberhau? That's what this is for. If they're committed to doing, say, Krumphau to your blade right now, do a Zornhau. And then especially if you're doing it in a tournament, put all your energy into it to show. No, I'm just kidding. But all you have to do, dip and in, or from here, come around. Right? Because if you think about it, if everyone hold your swords, hold your swords in ox, and if you think again, if I have to come out and do this, I'm giving you this side, and I am attempting to I'm moving forward in order to do this Krumphau, right? Unless I'm trying to really get out of the way, but either way, I'm still having to go to your sword, if that makes sense. Yeah. And so that's how all these kind of little pieces all kind of connect, especially the later parts of the Hauptstücke, which are not necessarily, they're components, but they're not necessarily methods in and of themselves, if that makes sense, right? With Zornhau, you can still do a change through. With Krumphau, you can still change through the Krumphau if you need to, right? All the little, like the Hauptstücke for the most part, are bits that we can kind of superimpose upon like the basics of other things. And we'll be exploring some more of that stuff later. But yeah, just again, real quick, because I know we're running over time. The basics of the Krumphau are, again, using a sword. For the most part, you're doing one of two things. You are avoiding an attack, and then laming them by avoiding that attack, either from this shoulder action, right, or action shoulder guard, or from Schrankhoot, and getting out of the way, right. And part of that is offering a target, getting them to try to strike you, and then laming them. Or using that same arching action. We're knocking the sword down, and then from there, moving in, right? With either a schnappen or just the Alta Schnitt, which is just whipping the sword up across their face, which is quite rude, etc. So those are the two primary actions and uses of the Krumphau, and part of that, again, it breaks Ox the easiest because you also are moving into Ox and creating a wall of steel or coming around and then setting yourself up for a thrust against it. There's some other things, some other kind of interpretations of this. Of the initial displacing the Ox, but those will be for another day because it's getting too late for tinfoil hats. So let's salute out, and then we'll close it. All right. So Oktun, Grüße on the left shoulder. Thank you everyone for coming. I hope this is everyone's excited about adding in extra workout stuff and more Misk sword play. I'm hoping that Tuesdays are going to continue to be good for people. We are going to be doing another class this Friday. This Friday will be a more Messer-centric class, so that'll be a lot of fun. And starting soon on Tuesdays, I don't have an exact schedule yet, but we're going to be rotating different people in Tuesday's slot to get kind of expanded perspectives on the same topics, on Longsword and a bunch of other topics. We'll have more information about that soon. I'm really excited about it. We got a bunch of really, really great people, some Gesellenler journeyman teacher folk coming in to teach us a thing, to learn us a good. All right, I'm excited, and I'll communicate more as we figure out the exact plans. Otherwise, thank you all so much for coming. I hope you're having a great week, and I'll see you all on Friday. All right, bye.